Hi guys, it's Marge from Fashion Index. Today we are going to be interviewing Molly Worth from the Factory Buffalo. Um, can't wait for you to learn all the different product categories that Molly has actually brought to life. They have brought up 100 new brands to life since 2020. I mean, this is amazing for you. So listen in. Here we go. Bringing Molly and Tirsa in right now. Hello, hello. Oh my God, we already have so many people here. Hello. Hey, Rachel. Okay, so here we go. Looking for us. Ah, here we go. Coming in right now and looking for Molly. There's
Hi, how are you? How is everyone?
good. Look how many people we already have here. All here to see Factory
Hi,
Buffalo. I'm
everybody.
excited. Yeah. This is going to be cool. Molly is going to give you a little bit of her background. She started out in the theater industry as a costume designer and a stylist. So she brings a lot of really interesting, like a little bit different from what who we worked with before. Here she is. All right. All right, Molly. Coming on.
Maybe she's coming. But in the meantime,
I can see her. No, I can see her. I don't know why it's
she's,
not.
she's she's had a very interesting career so far, and she's also equally passionate about sustainability. And we had this lovely talk the other day, and just how passionate she is about bringing great products to market, and her wealth of knowledge from the costume industry, like Mark said. She's really into like the upcycling, recycling, and just doing things a little bit smarter and different, and really listening to her customers, and has learned a ton from listening to customers abroad, at large, if I will. And so I really can't wait for her to come on so we can talk to her. She's she's a self-made woman because she decided she wanted to be what she wanted to be, and she said, "I know if I want to be here, I need to start my own thing," and so she did. Hi,
Hi,
Molly.
guys.
Molly,
Hi.
how are
I'm
you?
good. How are you?
Good, really good. Yeah,
Good. Thank you for having me today.
yeah. She's been giving people a little bit of a background on you got on the Factory Buffalo, and a little bit of your start in the theater industry as a costume designer and stylist, and where you moved. I also give them a little bit of a that you have created, which is an astounding. Worked with 100 new brands since 2020. You just blow my mind. I swear. It's awesome.
Thank you so much. That's so
Yeah.
kind. It's been a really fun journey, and I feel like we're just getting started, so I'm really
It's
excited.
very cool.
Thanks.
Tears. All right, let's do our official intro and tell everyone about Fashion Index.
Excellent. Yes. Hi, everybody. I'm Tirsa, and with me is Marge, my co-founder, and Molly Worth from the Factory Buffalo. And just wanted to give you a little bit about what Fashion Index is. Fashion Index is an online platform bringing together small to mid-sized businesses, connecting them with the businesses that are looking for them. So right-sized businesses working together. We're very sustainably minded, and without further ado, I want to introduce Molly Worth. Molly, as we talked a little bit, comes from the costume industry. I had lived in Atlanta and New York, and then started actually her own brand, and now has the Factory Buffalo. And so, without further ado, I'd love, Molly, if you would just give us a little extra backstory on yourself and talk about Factory Buffalo and kind of how you got started and what it's all about.
Great, thank you. So I, as you had mentioned, worked in styling and wardrobing for a long time, started learning how to construct garments while I was doing that, deconstruct garments, alterations. I apprenticed a tailor and just got really interested in garment construction and really passionate about women's wear through the women that I was styling and the creative concepts that I was coming up with. So I started a women's wear brand, and I was dedicated to domestic manufacturing. And I just really dove headfirst into this kind of cottage industry that exists here in the US, and learned how to source and all of the product development, and networked into this great little network of these factories and vendors. And so I just gained like such an appreciation for what went into creating a garment, especially domestically, and how passionate all of the vendors that I was working with were. And it was just very exciting. And I felt this kind of surge of interest surrounding me with the other small brands that I was meeting and talking with, and was showing next to at trade shows and talking with them at trade shows and stuff. And so when I decided that my women's wear brand was not sustainable for me, it was about 4 years in to wholesaling to boutiques. I launched the Factory Buffalo with the goal of product development in mind. But we started with like a partnership with a manufacturer. So we were kind of in their space. And that was right before COVID hit. So it was like terrible and wonderful timing in many ways.
You probably were like, what? Like,
Yes.
Like
being a
all of us, yeah.
COVID, the government was just dying for you guys.
Yes, we could not keep up. It was crazy. It was really trial by fire. I learned so much about managing manufacturing at that point. And really the product development kind of went on hold because we were really just filling the need like everyone else was. Excuse me. And but it was great. I mean, we were able to really help a lot of people and help in our local community with the hospitals and all of that, as everyone kind of in our industry really did and really pitched in. So anyway, as we moved forward from that, we parted ways with our manufacturer who stayed in medical manufacturing only. And we really wanted to be able to serve a variety of clients across various product categories. And that's what we've done. We've really, we've developed a great network of factories over all of the different specialties that we can really connect our clients with once they're prepared.
So it's funny, Molly, one thing that you did mention also in that like early talk that you and Tirsa had, which was it kind of really resonated with me, is these factories that you're working with now trust you, and they know that you're bringing them tech packs, production ready. Like they don't have to stop, because we all know a factory, they just have to keep the lines going. And so if you're not working with someone like Molly, you guys from the Factory Buffalo, a lot of times a factory may not work with you because they are not in the business of teaching you how to do production. They are trying to keep the lines going, keep the business running, and at actually a pretty fast pace. So that's why working with Molly is going to actually get you in the door with the best facilities. So you don't want to just create a line and have, Joe Schmo sewing it. If you're doing intimate apparel, if you're doing swimwear, you have to be in a swimwear facility, because the machines are not the same. The material handling is not the same. Operators who know how to handle intimate apparel fabric, swimwear fabric, they know how to handle that fabric. If you go with just any factory, they may tell you they can do it, and they're trying on your product. That's the last thing that you want.
Right.
because you will not sell garments. So I just wanted to bring that up because that was a major point, Molly. Like the fact that you have these factories in all different categories. Can you go through the different categories for us? Just because I think that would be really important too.
Sure. So we've worked in, let's see, swimwear, intimates, women's ready to wear, men's ready to wear, babies, toddlers, kids.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Wait, can I just stop you? Because
mhm.
I don't know, I bet you anything, people might think it's easy to make children's clothing. The laws that a factory is required to have certain equipment that is catching needles that might have broken in a sewing machine that broke in your clothes while it was being sewn. Like there are so many things you have to think about, guys, when you're going to make your clothing line. You might think it's just so easy. Everything's so easy to make clothing, and it is when you're at home. But like when you are mass producing, this is tremendously important. You have to be using the right facility that has the right equipment. All this. I'm so sorry. I didn't want to, Molly. Like it's just a
That's
cute,
a great point.
really important point. Yeah.
Well,
It
not
is,
only
yeah.
that, there's also the testing that you have to facilitate and prove, as well as all of the other things.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And certifications and all of that. It's very important. And I think to that point, looking at these partnerships as partnerships, like you're not just hiring someone, like they're intimately involved in your business in many ways, and as are we. So, facilitating that relationship, that's really like a mutual respect and really bouncing things off of each other, and we educate as much as we possibly can while we're in development with a client, and the factories do as well, but the factories just don't have time to work hand in hand with the client as much as we do. So we really try to get them up and running as much as we can, like holistically, by the time they're handed off to the
Hey,
factories.
I just want to answer Designed by Natalia. You can reach her on fashionindex.com. Just look up the Factory Buffalo and you'll be able to connect with her right there. So somebody's already asking to connect with you, which is fantastic.
That's great.
Um,
We are actively accepting new clients right now. So
yes,
yeah.
absolutely. And I know we interrupted you when you were talking about product categories, but in addition, she does bags and accessories. And so there's a wide range of areas and products that she's already an expert in and already has the right connections with factories to work with. And like Marge was saying, she brings the product ready to go to the factory, so they have a strong connection and bond, and they are always looking forward to working with her because they know when they receive it, it's good to go.
Right.
Yeah, we really pride ourselves on like the level of detail that we provide to the factories. Like oftentimes there's a little bit of a confusion from people when we're onboarding about what a tech pack really should look like, and we'll go through what we call like a design board ideation process that sometimes people get confused with a tech pack that's really for the manufacturer, that has the proper stitch terminology and extensive points of measure, and really can't be misinterpreted by
Right.
any factory. So that's really great too, because the client knows that, if they outgrow this partnership with the factory that we've connected them with, then they can take that information elsewhere
Right.
too. And it's always an important thing to mention that they own all of that, that's their intellectual property as well, which is a really big distinction between working domestically and internationally, I think. So
Yeah. I absolutely agree. I think that's really great. And as we were talking the other day, I mean, I have been in the industry forever, and when I was talking to you, I was like, oh, like-minded individuals. Molly really knows what she's talking about. And we were kind of talking about what's the experience for a client when they're interested in working with you, and could you just kind of talk everyone just listening through that?
yeah, absolutely. So right on our website, we have the option to schedule a complimentary client intake call that's 20 minutes. And that's a great opportunity for us to chat with new clients and get to know what their needs are, make sure we're the right fit for them
Hmm.
as well. And then get to know kind of where they're at. We like to really meet people where they are. So everyone comes to us at a different kind of point in the process. A lot of people are just in the initial ideation stage, which is perfectly fine. And sometimes people have already made their first samples, or they're, you know, switching gears on a product line that exists. And we're happy to take all of that information in and do an audit and kind of tell them what they need. But that 20-minute call kind of gives me a gauge on where they're at. And then from there, if they're interested in setting up the paid consultation that gets the ball rolling, there's also an option on our website to sign up for that. We send over an intake sheet that really gets to the root of their goals, their manufacturing goals, their volume, their proposed volume. I really like to get a holistic perspective on what the client's needs are at that time. Do they need branding? Do they need
Right.
label design? Do they need a textile design? Like, there are so many things. I really like to prompt people to start thinking about their sales plan, setting the stage for their marketing, so that by the time their product development is done and they're ready for manufacturing, they're ready to start pre-sales, or they're ready to hit the ground running with their samples. So these are really things, like, it's a little bit outside of the scope of like your normal product development, but I like to really, I feel like it's like really important ethical uh, persuasion that I have, that people understand really like what they need to do to run their business effectively, because we want to see people successful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's that holistic kind of view that you bring to the business. And you're so right. You know, we can make great product, but you also need to think about, where am I going to sell it? How am I going to sell it? And start building that following and the customer base. So when the product's actually available, that you have somebody to sell it to. I mean, you can't wait until the product's ready to start doing
Yeah.
that.
I
Yeah.
mean, and just for you all to know, every retailer pre-sells.
Hmm.
Okay, so even the biggest brands that we make samples first. We present the samples to our buyers, right? Which is the same thing as your potential customers, whether it be a boutiques, whether it be, if you decide to do uh, direct to customer, it would be smarter to have a couple of boutiques, because then you kind of get a gauge on what, of all your collection or your line, what do these buyers feel confident in, and then you can actually just kind of go deeper on your inventory plan on those styles that they're planning to sell in stores, because then you're not sitting on a kind of a guesstimate, if you will, So I love that you're doing that, Molly, because you're kind of taking somebody who has an idea, and you're like, okay, if you're going to make this a business, this is how you have to think about it, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, absolutely. Because and this has been from years of observation with clients that I've started to dig into this more. And we are looking for sales coaches to partner with actually right now too, because I think having some strategic partnerships that we can really send our clients to that specialize in these areas would be really useful for them. Um, we have partnered with Apparel Mentor as well. Like, we're referring people to them for the education component to really understand how to manage their business. We're also looking for someone kind of in sales, like focused in sales, to do that as well. And we've just noticed that people will get really excited about developing their product and really excited about the product. And then they are making all these units, and then they get really spooked and they don't have a plan. And so I think that has been one of like the biggest pitfalls that I've noticed, that we're trying to really help, even though it's outside of kind of what we do, just
Right.
really help the client navigate. It's really, really important. And I love what you said about pre-sales, because when I was doing my women's wear line, I was solely pre-sale. So I hit the pavement hard. I mean, I developed lists. I drove across the country, zigzag back and forth, going to boutiques and trade shows and all of it. And it's not easy, but it certainly is a better way to launch than just not knowing who you're selling to at all.
Yeah.
And at least having some accounts ready to go to, let's say half your inventory is spoken for. That's a lot less of a risk. So.
Oh yeah, you're
Absolutely.
probably balance you out. Even if you just have half of your inventory covered, it probably makes you even from a production standpoint, right?
Right.
So everything else is just like gravy for you. And but the most important thing I think is finding out what styles are your key styles, and it will also tell you what demographic you might think you know your demographic, and someone a different demographic actually might be really loving your product. This is a really great way to identify all of that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So interesting. Well, Molly, the last thing I want to talk about is we know you have your product development and production service, but you also have it's a product management, which is different, right?
It's an
Yes,
extension.
it is. And it is a service that because of the kind of reflection over the last 6 years, something that we've noticed is like really, really beneficial to the client as well, which is managing the manufacturing for the client. So once they go through, the initial consultation and we work through the design boards, technical design, pattern drafting, we do sample making in-house, fittings, size run samples, digitizing and grading. Just want to plug all of our services because those are like the focus of what we do. But when you're ready for production, this production management service goes beyond us just sourcing a manufacturer for you and connecting you. We will actually manage the manufacturing directly with the manufacturer. So that would include ordering all of the materials, tracking them on your bill of materials live for you to see what your inventory levels are as production goes, being the point of contact with the manufacturer so that if any issues arise, like we can manage that significantly more easily than the clients can because they're just not used to speaking the language of the manufacturer.
Yeah.
So we can just troubleshoot like in real time with the manufacturer. And what I'll do to give the client full transparency on what that cost looks like is at the end of our development work, I will develop a cost of goods sold worksheet for each product. That includes everything, the raw materials, the packaging, the labels, all of it. And then wrap in the cut and sew cost and then put my percentage, which fluctuates based on the size of the project.
Sure.
And that will be included in there. So they can choose to look at it as like a cost of goods sold item, or we can just, choose to look at it another way. But I found that it's actually really helpful to see it, what the cost implications are that way. But really to help the client understand, how also like pricing their product is another, big big thing for them to really like know the breakdown of, and a lot of people don't necessarily go through that exercise. So that's something we like to offer at Handoff as well.
That's major, because that is your cost of goods sold.
Right.
That's where your cost of goods sold. Now you have to say, what am I going to sell the product for? Usually 2 to 3 times what your cost of goods sold is. And now you know your profit margin. And without information that Molly just said, you are guessing. And if you're wrong, you're in the negative, you're in the red. So like it's really important. We have a question from watching, and they're saying, at what point does protection of your design begin? Molly, you want to address that one, or I?
Right. It's right at the onset of the project. We actually work with contracts, which a lot of people in our industry don't really do, but I think it's really helpful for the client to know exactly the expectations for the project. So
Mhm.
I issue a contract at the beginning of our scope of work together, and there's language in there that clarifies that the client owns all of the intellectual property that we're creating for them.
Exactly.
Yep.
Guys, you're paying for a product, you own it. So don't let anybody tell you that they own the patterns or they own this. You're paying for a product, you own it. But I like that Molly's documenting it all there for you so that you clearly know, no question. But if you're ever working with any manufacturer, you should just know that the fact that you are paying them for a service, you own your product, you own your designs. So just don't ever let anybody tell you otherwise, because it's not true.
And it's a little harder to manage that or protect that with certain areas of overseas. And that's one of the really great things about knowing that Molly's doing this all domestically and working with domestic facilities and has that relationship with them and the documentation to support it, saying, you know, I'm working with you for you to produce your product and it's yours.
Yeah. Absolutely. We've had customers who've come to us from overseas facilities that have had a difficult time getting their
Mm-hmm.
patterns and getting their intellectual properties. So it definitely is a benefit to working domestically. Even if they own it, it's like, you know, pulling teeth to get it from these people. So
Beauty, especially, you know, that is a nice thing. Like you said, getting your feet wet. Learn how to do this whole thing. If you're in it, you're not in it, you know, for a year. This is like your baby, your project. Learn how to get the whole ball rolling domestically. That's just my recommendation, because you can easily get on a flight, get on a train, get on a drive to wherever you know you need to get to maybe see in person what you need to see. But yeah, overseas is much harder and much more expensive.
Harder, more expensive, and not everybody is as ethically
Yeah.
Ethical. Where I've worked in large companies, and we've had investigators have to go and shut factories down because they were making extra product that out the back door, and that's just not something that you want to have to deal with.
Yeah.
it's so difficult to vet overseas too. I mean, there are agents that you can work with domestically that have more closely working relationships with the overseas facilities. I don't have a lot of familiarity with it, so I don't make that recommendation lightly to our clients. I always try to encourage domestic, mostly also because most of our clients are producing maybe 1,500 or under in units. So it's very difficult to get a manufacturer overseas at lower volumes that, you know, you can trust to not kind of push you to the back of the line if a bigger job comes up. I think, you know, in domestic manufacturing, it's such a small network of people that I think it just doesn't happen here. That doesn't happen in my experience.
Yeah, and I don't want to throw overseas like and make everybody think that danger. There's lots of really great facilities, but it's farther away. It's harder to check on. You really need to have a level of knowledge and sophistication and when you're sourcing and working with them. I mean, I've sourced factories that are wonderful all across the world. So I don't want to say that that's not possible, but domestically is a very solid way, particularly for small to mid-sized businesses, to work and to go. The flexibility that gives you, the length of transportation alone shortens your product development time.
The
And
cost.
there's such a big win for that because your dollars are spent much closer to your product being received by a customer, and it's just a huge win.
Yeah.
And you know, if you need to make the adjustments or things, you can do things much quicker. You can immediately impact your product. Like they said, you can get in a car, you can get on a plane, train, or whatever, and go see it physically, like really quickly. Just the level of communication is much smoother.
Yeah. And one last thing with regard to domestic versus overseas production. Domestic production, you're making your product. Let's say you have somebody like Molly at the Factory Buffalo making your product. You know, they handle that being made. Your next stop is your warehouse and then shipped to the customer. When you're talking about overseas production, you got to get it from the factory to the port. The factory doesn't handle that. The factory is not your shipper. So the factory to the port to customs, you know, well, getting it across the seas, overseas, whether it be air or boat, either way, you're paying a lot more for low volume.
Yeah, and if you're not filling a container,
and exactly, if you're not filling a container, just all of it. But anyway, and then you got to get it through customs, pay customs duties. I mean, there's just and then get it out of customs and then get it to your warehouse. There's like 5 more stops along the way. There's 5 more service fees along the way. I think when you add up all of the extra things you have to do, you could have paid the same amount to make it domestically.
Absolutely.
Right.
I say that often to people, especially at these lower volumes. Like, yes, maybe you're saving $5 a unit, which is significant. There's no arguing that. But by the time you have to pay customs and duties and your transit fees, it really does end up being not that different. And you have a lot more stress and anxiety in communicating and the time zones, and all of that.
And if you have a small order, I mean, good luck capturing their attention. You're important. You're not important to an overseas factory.
Yeah.
It's just really much more cumbersome. So
yeah. So Lee 365 totally agrees with you and said that it's equalizing. And I think that's an important thing to say. It is equalizing the time and the cost, because yes, you have to pay to physically move the product. We have to pay somebody to manage moving the product because you're not there. So you need somebody physically there. The driver, you have to pay the person who's doing the paperwork and following up with the customs people and waiting for it to clear and alerting you that it's cleared and then doing the next step. There's a lot of little parts and pieces that you just don't need to worry about if it's domestic.
Exactly.
And I mean, the cost to the sustainability factor of it all as well, like shipping a product that could easily be made here from one end of the world to the other. It's just the implications of that. I think people are starting to really realize are just not right to do. Yeah. And if you have to take, I will often say this, if you need to take a little bit of a lower margin as you're starting out in order to keep your cost at a certain level that you think is appropriate for selling, I think it's worth it to do when you're launching a product, and then you earn the trust of your vendors and your customers, and then you can obviously increase your margins as you go. But I think it's worth taking a little bit of a hit at the start of the project just to know that you can really stay hands-on and interactive and do things the right way. And so many of our clients have these, they're coming to us with that ethos. And so I feel like facilitating that is really important for all of us in this industry.
And I completely agree. And I just want to give a kudos to those domestic manufacturers who are working with startups, because they're really investing in you for the long term. They want to see you successful. There's this passion and compassion that they have working with these new clients, because they really want you to be successful, and they want to impart some knowledge in what they're doing to you and make great product for you. It's a certain type of person and business that does that. And so I really want to just give a kudos to all of those businesses that are working with startups and working with smaller quantities and cheering for you to be successful. They're cheering for you because yes, it's going to hopefully come back to them where you're going to place another order and it's going to be a little bit larger. But most importantly, it's going to, they want to see you grow. They want to see you thrive. They're in it with you. They're your business partners, just like Molly, just like the Factory Buffalo. They are part of your community of success.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's so true. And it's really interesting how much more approachable I think the whole industry has become over the last 10 years, since I've started having exposure to it. And the vendors, the fabric vendors, the manufacturers, they all like they've become more invested, I think, over time, seeing that it is beneficial to them. So I think a lot of people feel intimidated approaching a manufacturer, and they still don't want you to waste their time.
Sure.
Like, and
Yeah.
you still do need to be respectful of their time because they are running a business, and they do run differently than we do in development. So that's why we really focus on building that trust and giving them product that's ready to go. But they, you know, if they're getting what they need from you, then that mutual respect really begins to grow, and they do want to invest in the small brands because they've seen, I think, a growth in this small business sector of their businesses.
For sure.
Even like, you know, the fabric vendors are starting to offer like, you know, more approachable minimums, or they're reaching out to us and you know, and trying to get new clients and stuff. So I think that's really an interesting shift.
They really.
Yeah, no, that's really important to share, and you're so right. The awareness and the flexibility that comes with it, I think it's just getting better, and the network's getting stronger domestically. That there's just a really good vibe of like, how can we help you be successful? But yes, please bring me something that's ready to
Right.
go.
Yeah.
Understandable. Yeah. All right, you guys. I think we have to wrap this up because we just want to make sure we keep the attention span.
All good.
Wonderful. And Molly, we can't wait to do another one with you.
Me too. This was really fun. I could talk all day with you guys.
Yeah, this is really fun. Thank you, everybody who's been listening. If you have additional questions or you want to reach out to Molly Worth from the Factory Buffalo, please go to fashionindex.com. Just type in the business name and they'll pop right up. You can connect with them right there, or you can message them outside. And we do these about at least a couple times a month, usually on a Tuesday at this time. So please continue to look out for additional lives that we're doing. And
if you follow a Real Fashion Index, you'll see the announcements right on our feed.
Absolutely. And please reach out to Molly Worth from the Factory Buffalo. And Molly, thank you so much for your time. It was so nice to talk to you.
Thank you.
We love what you're doing. So proud of you. And we are cheering for you and all of your clients.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. All right, guys. Have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye.
Bye.